Well, a short while ago, I did a video on these dials on the end of the mill here, which are really hard to get at. And I had put some of these brass rings on there so that it'd be easier to turn. By the time I was finished doing two of them, I realized that I should have made them a little wider. They're easier to grab and actually look nicer. I'm going to bring the camera over here and let you see just how bad this is designed here. So here's that little wheel, and to try to get your hand in there, there's not a whole lot of room. So what I've done here is I've taken the brass fitting off, and I'm going to make it a little wider, 200 thou wide instead of 100 thousandths of an inch. And I thought I might try to make it out of aluminum and see how that worked. It's easier to machine and would kind of blend better with the machine itself. So we've got a piece of aluminum in the lathe. Just go over here to the lathe, and I've already put a knurl on it here, and then I drilled out over 200 thou deep inside here, and then finished off with a boring bar. And this diameter inside here is now 4 thousandths smaller than where it has to fit. Now that would be right over here. Take that off of there. It has to fit over top of this here. So I'm going to part that off now and see how that press fits on there. If it were steel on steel, 4 thousandths would be a lot of overkill. But I think the 4 thou being it's aluminum, and the fact that this is kind of has serrated, it's not a solid piece, it might press on okay and be pretty solid at the same time. Here's a close-up of the ring pressed on there, and you can move this, and it's nice and solid, and it's not hard to move because it's a lot wider. I think I can be happy with that. Looks good. You're looking at a rotary table, a small one that I just bought, and I have attached my 3-jaw chuck to it, and that's running pretty close. I'm happy with that. But when it comes to attaching this rotary table to the mill table, on this side over here, we've got a nice pocket here and lots of room, and that's not a problem. But on the other side, can't really get in here. It's pretty tight in here, and if I was able to get that in, there'd be no place, no slot to attach to here. So I'm looking at the other side, and it's pretty well the same. You try to get something like this in. I don't know if we can get the camera in here. We'll try. See if we put that on there, and we can get that on the little ledge. But then when the time comes to support the other end, it's not small enough. It's going to hit here. This is not long enough. If I try to go to something longer than this in the set, it's also wider than this, and it's not going to fit in there at all. So I did come up with a solution that seems to work fairly well. I'll try and get a hold of that over here. I think I'm going to have to put the camera down. Piece of scrap metal left over from another project. So what I did is I drilled a hole here for this bolt, and then I put it on the mill and I elongated the hole a little bit. Just like one of these things has, but not to that extent. So now we can push that in, raise it up so it sits on the ledge, and we have room now to put it on here. And that's not sitting quite right. I've only got one hand to work with. I've got the camera in the other, but you get the idea. That seems to work. So if you're stuck with a problem like this, think about just making your own clamp. It's a little wider than the normal clamps, but that's just going to give it extra strength and rigidity, so that's not going to hurt anything. And it seems to work pretty good. I've tested that out. It doesn't move, it clamps well. As far as doing any kind of a review on this little machine, I think I'm still a little bit biased. My last mill weighed about 600 pounds, and I think this somewhere is around the 200 mark. So it's quite a bit smaller, a lot less rigid, more inclined to move, chatter, vibrate. But the advantage you have with this mill over the last one that I had, which was a PDM-30, also a King Canada product, the advantage of this one is that it has variable speed right here. You can just dial it in. So what you want to do is don't get your speed going too fast, don't get your feet going too fast, and avoid getting any kind of a shaking or chatter going on, because that will affect your accuracy. If you get used to this, it's a nice little machine. It's quite rigid, really. It's very good for its size. I'm very surprised. The table is nice and solid. I don't feel any slop in the table at all. Either way, the gibs are adjusted nicely. And down the road, I may find something that I don't like about it, and I'll report on that. But barring the couple of things that I've adjusted, like those scales we just talked about, and up here I'd also put in the longer drawbar, which is really nice. I can grab a hold of that now, and once I've loosened it with a wrench, I can turn it in and out easily, and I'm not hurting my fingers turning that square that the original drawbar had on top of it. And that would be about it for the King Mill.